Let it be known that Pennsylvania's top government official keeps on top of his 76ers as much as possible.
I got this thing on my phone that gives you the play-by-play, so I'll be in a meeting, maybe keeping an eye on what's happening in the game. And I am someone, look, I grew up in the Philly area, and so all of us have two things in common. We hate the Cowboys and we despise the Celtics.
Josh Shapiro. In his next life, he'll be able to guard Joel Embiid.
Yeah, Dad, make him go left.
More on his love of the Sixers, Philly sports, and his current job, governor of Pennsylvania, next on Fresh 24.
The Sixers lock all windows and doors. For the record! Redick, can he get it off? And the putback turning garbage into goal.
Governor Josh Shapiro. I know it's Shapiro, but for some it's Shapiro. Who determines if it's Shapiro or Shapiro? Is that an individual thing?
Zu, it's great to be with you, man. I think in like 5 counties in the United States of America, it's Shapiro, including some of the counties here in southeastern PA. But, I actually grew up kind of in between Shapiro and Shapiro, went to college in New York, worked in D.C. a little bit. No matter how many times I'd say Shapiro, they'd correct me and say it's Shapiro. And then when Laura and I were getting ready to get married, we had the talk. I said, look, I'm cool if you want to keep your last name. You want to take my last name? You decide. But we got to decide before we get married here. And she goes, I'm willing to take your name if we decide once and for all how the hell you're supposed to say it. And we actually traced it back to sort of the roots of the name, to the town of Speyer in Germany. And Shapiro is the correct pronunciation. So that's kind of what we've gone with.
I'll take that to the bank. How about the fact that I teach at Temple, and when I go into the classroom, they refer to me as professor, and I have trouble with that. Are you answering to governor, or do you say, forget that, call me Josh?
I always tell people to call me Josh, although professor is cool. Are you wearing the elbow patches on the suit now? I don't know.
Not quite. You mean like the old tattered corduroy jacket? No,
right.
No, it's... I have that tucked away, although I think it does still fit, I might add. But listen,
go
ahead.
It's cool. I mean, look, it's an honor to be called governor. And, I feel honored to be in the role. I go in my office in Harrisburg, in the Capitol. And if you look up really high ceilings, you look up and there are portraits of every governor, every leader of Pennsylvania, even before we became an official Commonwealth. And you realize you're like part of this lineage that includes William Penn, Ben Franklin. I mean, these giants. And, I'm very humbled by that. And so when someone calls you a governor, when you think of all the people who came before you, man, it's a hell of an honor. But I do always try and tell folks, just call me Josh. That's how I want people to think of me. And I want folks to know I'm accessible. I'm one of them.
All right, Josh. Well, you are the governor, and this is a recorded interview, but let's just take today. Okay. What's today like? Just to give me an idea as to what it's like to be you.
Yeah, look, every day is different, but the common thread is every single day is incredibly busy. It's a combination of, talking to folks like you who can get the word out about the work we're doing in the media. A lot of internal meetings with my team to make decisions. I think one thing everybody should know is nothing really ever gets to my desk unless it's a tough decision. All the easy decisions get made long before they ever reach the governor's desk. I try not to be captive to being behind the desk all day, but rather get out in the community. Yesterday, I was at a big biotech incubator in Bucks County 2 days or 3 days, something like that. Before that, I was at a farm in a rural part of Pennsylvania talking about the avian flu and also how we can grow our economy through investment in ag. So I try and get out of the office as much as I can, show up in communities, oftentimes those that have been ignored or forgotten, listen to people, not just talk at them, but actually listen to people about the challenges they face. And so every single day is different, but every single day is jam-packed. Starting early in the morning, go until late at night, and I am the last person to complain about that. I love it. I asked for this job. I'm honored and humbled to do it.
Although I have to say this, you hear a lot of politicians, whether on the campaign trail or once they're elected, they'll misspeak because I think there's so much on their schedule. It's all right, where am I? What are we doing here? That sort of thing. Do you find yourself having to sort of gather yourself and take a minute to remember where you are and what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. That is a challenge. And I know that might sound crazy to people, but, I'll have in a typical day, I'll be in my office, senior staff, members of my cabinet, going over a very, very serious issue, right? And trying to make a tough decision and then jumping right in the truck, zipping over to some event. And you're still kind of processing the decision that you were working on. You probably had several calls in the car on the way over to the event of issues you got to deal with, calls you got to return, whatever. And then I get to the event and I actually do have to force myself. It doesn't take very long, 30 seconds, something like that, to sort of stop before we open that car door, talk to my aide who's with me and say, okay, just level set me. Where are we? What are we doing here? What's our goal? Right. And then I can jump out of the car and go do it. So it is something you gotta sort of focus. I'm pretty good, I think, at compartmentalizing and focusing on the task at hand. But with all the stuff you have going on, with all that's swirling around, with just the vast space there is in Pennsylvania, 67 counties, you're running all over the place. You do have to take that minute to kind of set yourself and then get going to the next thing.
I raised my family in Montgomery County. You grew up in Montgomery County. You were a state rep in the area where essentially you grew up. And yeah. I just remember when you first started in politics, people were saying that this guy's going to be governor. Did you think that back in the day?
No. And I know folks don't believe that, but I'll tell you what I knew and what I didn't know, Mark. I knew I really was into public service. I knew I wanted to do this, the service, the public service, politics for a long time. So I definitely knew that. And there have been moments along the way where you question that, but I've always sort of stayed true to that. But I wasn't thinking back then, geez, I'm going to do all this to become governor. I think it was just more, I'm going to keep doing this and just keep taking opportunities where I can serve more people and help more people along the way. It obviously wasn't until just, recent years where I began to focus on the prospect of being governor.
This being a Sixers-centric podcast, we're going to talk hoops. I know you love the Sixers. Please. I know you love the game, but I got to delve into some political waters. Nothing real sticky here, but just some theoretical stuff that I'm interested in. A recent Philadelphia Inquirer article, you said, it said, across political parties, those who have worked with Shapiro over his career describe him as someone who at his core wants to solve problems and find common ground. Common ground, what a concept. In a broader sense. How do we stop yelling at each other and start listening more and finding common ground?
I mean, I think you actually kind of answered the question and used the L word, listening. We don't do enough of that in politics. Look, just because you're finding common ground doesn't mean, Mark, that you abandon your core principles. Doesn't mean that you give up on the values that you hold dear. But it does mean that you listen to other people's perspectives and see if there is maybe a thread within there where you can find that point of agreement. I made it clear when I took the oath of office on January 17th to serve as governor of the Commonwealth that I was going to be, someone who's going to try and take down the temperature in the Capitol. listen to Democrats and Republicans, set the table of progress, bring people together to begin to get things done again. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on your podcast, but one of the things we focus on every day is GSD, get shit done. The only way you get shit done, Mark, is by listening and finding common ground. I can't do things alone, and the legislature can't do things without me. So we are together in this. And by the way, we're the only state in the nation with a full-time divided legislature. So nothing's going to happen unless Republicans and Democrats can find common ground. So I just try every day, pick up the phone, invite people to my office, look them in the eye, listen, find that common ground. I'm proud of the fact that the first bill that I'm signing into law is a bill that does away with the costs women would bear for breast cancer screenings, right? Something really important that's going to save lives. It was authored by the Republican leader of the Senate, passed in the Democratic House, and it's going to be signed by Democratic governor. It's an example of bipartisanship that's actually going to make a difference in people's lives. It's going to literally save lives, I believe. That's the kind of work that we're trying to do every single day now in state government. It starts with listening to people.
Yeah, but what about, and I'm not discounting the bill and what it's going to do. I mean, it's great. But what about the more divisive issues? What about people who have extreme views? And I'm talking about left or right. How do you bring them into the fold?
Well, look, as I said a moment ago, there's just certain things I won't compromise on. For example, Mark, I'll never compromise on defending a woman's right to choose. As long as I'm governor, women will always have the freedom to make decisions over their own bodies. So if someone comes to me with an extreme view on the other side, like what Florida has done and West Virginia and other states have done to effectively ban abortion, I'm sure as hell not going to sign that into law. But what I am going to do is make clear, these are my values. I got sent here in part to defend people's fundamental freedoms. We are not going to find common ground on that issue. What I won't do, and what too oftentimes happens in our politics, is you then just sort of throw those folks out of the office and say, well, I'm not working with you on anything. I have a different attitude, which is, okay, we're not going to agree on this. I'm going to defend a woman's right to choose, but let's instead focus on how we can bring VOTEC back in the classrooms and create opportunities for young people to chart a pathway into the workforce that they want for themselves, right? Let's refocus ourselves on the areas where we can find common ground. And I got to tell you, typically you can find that area where you can have some agreement, even if there's some core differences like choice or something related.
Josh, how do you balance the need for government versus the need for free markets and, for that matter, individual freedoms?
I think every day, you work on that depending upon the issue. I believe in real freedom, the freedom to make decisions over your own body, the freedom for an individual to marry another individual that they love, the freedom of parents to be able to make decisions over what books their kids should read, not have them banned by some extremist, the kind of freedom that allows a business to be able to grow because they're unencumbered by overburdensome government regulations. That is what I focus on every day, defending real freedom here in this Commonwealth. And I think that's how you tend to find balance in these debates. Government has an important role to play, for example, when that individual is trying to build a big building, to ensure that it's not violating our environmental rights here in this Commonwealth, but by the same token, creating a pathway to getting that building built so we can have new job creation, new economic opportunity, especially for communities that are oftentimes forgotten.
Campaigning can get nasty. And once the campaigning is done and you take office, a lot of the same people you campaigned against are there, and you got to work with them. How do you set that aside and say, all right, time to go to work in spite of what just happened?
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's just sort of part of the business, right? And I have learned to not take any of this personally, sort of let it go off your back, and understand that when the campaign is over and the people trust you to do the job. And Mark, I just got elected governor, 100 and some days ago by an historic number of voters. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that because the only way I got that number was because not just Democrats, but Republicans and independents trusted me to do the job as well. So I have a responsibility to them to not look back at what happened in a campaign, but look forward to now doing the job I was hired to do to make their lives a little bit better.
All politicians get help from third parties, financially or otherwise. There are lobbyists who are always pushing for their causes. Can a politician possibly remain independent of those influences once they're in office and do the bidding of the people?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think the answer is yes, but if I may, I'd like to kind of reframe it a little bit. And you can push back on me if you don't like the answer. I don't know that every politician should be independent of influence. And before you chop up the answer, let me explain what I mean by that. I should be influenced by the communities that I go out and listen to. I was on a farm the other day in rural Lancaster County talking about high-path avian influenza, really serious threat to our farmers. And by the way, one of the reasons why you're seeing rising prices on eggs when you go to the grocery store. And, I had a notion of how to fight back against the avian flu. But you know what? They influenced me to think about the issue differently and to actually change a little bit about how we were reaching out. Now, I don't think any of the farmers around the table were lobbyists per se. Certainly, to my knowledge, not donors either, but they influenced my thinking on that. I think it's a good thing. I think that shows you're actually open and listening. I'll tell you another area where I've been influenced. I was someone, and this is not going to be popular with folks on your podcast maybe, but I was someone who years and years and years ago advocated for the death penalty. I was influenced by learning more about the criminal justice system, by being our chief law enforcement officer here in the Commonwealth as Attorney General, by listening to victims and others express to me why they think the death penalty is unjust. By the way, also by listening to my 12-year-old on the matter. And I ultimately changed my mind on this. I was influenced by the voices I heard, and I announced recently my opposition to the death penalty, and that as governor, I wouldn't sign execution warrants. I don't think you want your government officials to be in a position where they never get influenced by anybody. I think it's important that we listen, that we take in information, we process it, and then we exercise our judgment to make sound decisions. I don't expect everybody to agree with the decisions I make. I think it's important, though, that we listen. The last thing I'll say on this is I think what's important is being open and transparent about that, right? Saying, I went to this farm, I listened to these farmers, they made me change my mind, and here's why, and here's what I'm doing now. I think that is an important thing we have to remember in our politics. You got to listen.
Well, I think our listeners would like me to veer away a little bit from politics, and I know you have limited time, so we're going to talk about basketball, your love of basketball, your love of the Sixers. But first, this is what we call our halftime segment.
Okay.
What I'm going to do here, Governor, is I'm going to give you a choice between two things, and you blurt out the answer, okay? We're going to do this fast. This is not something you need to think about, okay? Ready? Here you go.
Go ahead.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee, big time.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Rock or rap?
I like both. Rap.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Hot or cold?
Cold.
Plain or peanuts?
We talking weather or drinks?
Just answer the question.
All right, sorry. All right, hot.
It could be whatever you want. Plain or peanuts?
Plain.
Offense or defense?
Offense.
Maximum or minimum?
Max.
Eagles or Steelers?
Eagles. You can't listen. You can't bullshit your way through sports. I even tell people in the West I'm an Eagles fan. Now I'll root for the Steelers if they're not playing against the Eagles. I want to see them be really successful, but I'm a Philly sports fan.
Well, you locked up the Philly vote for the next election. All right, here's the music library. You ready? My music library. I'm going to give you a handful of artists. You tell me if you have them or not. Ready? Post Malone.
A little bit.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Not really.
Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Sure.
Blues Traveler.
Yes.
And just for grins, you mentioned you like rap. Who's your favorite artist?
I'm a Meek Mill fan, and I know that sounds like a homer answer, but I like his music. I've gotten to know him. I think he's a pretty special guy. I've got a weird playlist, though, on my iPhone. I got a lot of rap and a ton of country, believe it or not. And
Really?
it is not something that often blends, but I enjoy both.
Who do you like? Who's your favorite country artist?
I'm a big Luke Combs guy. When I'm looking just to chill out, little Dan and Shay, I like Miranda Lambert. I mean, I'm a big country fan.
All right, Josh, aside from your love of country, and I mean music, but I know you love your country, you love basketball. Why?
So much. I just love the sport, man. It's fast. It requires teamwork. A lot of critical thinking. The athletes are just amazing. I've been a hoops fan my whole life. I still play. And I'm like singularly, if I'm not doing my work or hanging out with my kids, I'm singularly focused on the Sixers right now.
Should I tell people how much you text me during games? Why is this happening? Why wasn't he shooting there? What's going on? I mean, you are really rabid. Do you watch every game?
When I can. I mean, a lot of times I'm like in the car running from thing to thing. I'll watch it on my iPad. If I can sort of catch the tail end of a game after a long day, I do. I mean, I'm trying to really stay focused on it. I got this thing on my phone that gives you the play-by-play. So I'll be in a meeting, maybe keeping an eye on what's happening in the game. And I am someone, look, I grew up in the Philly area. And so all of us have two things in common. We hate the Cowboys and we despise the Celtics. And so I am, really focused right now on the Sixers Celtics series, which I think we've all assumed was coming all season, and now it's here.
Encapsulate your own career.
My hoops career?
Yeah, your hoops career.
So, look, I started out playing in a kind of a local community league, actually, ironically, a community league now that my kids are sort of aging out of it, but that I coach my kids in. I played basketball at the old Akiba Academy. We won the championship in my senior year. We had a hell of a team. We won the Tri-County Championship. I actually played for a brief period of time Division III at the University of Rochester until I got cut from the team. I'm embarrassed to say, but it is true. I got cut from the men's basketball team. I got to that level, and man, not only was everybody taller than me, which I expected, but I thought I was quick and I could shoot. I was smart, but they were all way quicker, way smarter, and they could shoot better. But it was a cool experience still to play a little bit. And I still play pickup with my kids and some guys. We did put in a hoop at the governor's residence, so we get to shoot there as well, and I enjoy it a lot.
This would be outside, in a driveway? You don't have it like inside in some big room, right? I mean,
no, man, it ain't that glamorous. We've got just a driveway, and we put up a hoop, and we love playing out there.
Nice. Getting cut from a basketball team. Did you look at it as a sign of failure? Did you look at it as the ceiling for your own basketball career? How did you react to that?
Well, I definitely knew that my NBA career was over at that point, Mark. But no, I mean, true story. Same day, freshman year, three things happened. One, I flunked out of pre-med, which is, I thought I was going to be a doctor like my dad. Obviously, that didn't happen. Two is I got cut from the men's basketball team a few hours later. But then that night, someone knocked on my dorm room door and said to me, hey, you should run for student government. Like, well, I don't know why I'd want to do that, but okay. And his comment to me was, you got nothing else going on in your life right now. Maybe try something new. And the truth is, that's when I fell in love with public service. That's when I realized that I had an ability to, be a strong advocate for others. So those three things all happened in one day, my freshman year.
Your freshman year, you're the only, as I understand it, freshman school president in the history of the University of Rochester. Is that right?
Yeah. That's what I'm told. Yeah.
So, I just remember myself as a freshman at Temple just wanting to, make sure that I got everything right and what's this and, just trying to discover what had to be discovered. And you're running for school president and winning. I mean, how are you able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it was interesting. Sports played a role in that. Not only getting cut from the team and then, looking for something else to do, but after I got on the student, I think they call it like the student senate, right? The student assembly. The administration of the university cut funding for all the club sports. crew and the other club sports existed. And I led an effort by the student body to get that funding reinstated. And then at the end of that effort, I'm like, well, hell, I should run for student president and do more of this. And you know what I did, Mark? Something I did later on in my career, I went around and knocked on every dorm room door and talked to students, listened to them, asked them to vote for me. And I became the first freshman ever elected student body president.
Well, in December of 2021, you took on a podcaster in a game of horse for charity. Let's listen to the trash talk.
Here's what we'll do. I'm in Pittsburgh a couple times a week. Let's find a court. Let's play one-on-one, and let's do it for the charity of your choice. And let's raise some money for a good cause and help some folks, okay?
Absolutely love that. It's on. Let's do it.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
I think Jordy's in a lot of trouble today. I've been playing basketball with my dad for a while, and I don't like to admit it, but he's pretty good.
I am so nervous for this game. I mean, this guy can flat out hoop.
Look, I've taken on Donald Trump in court. I've taken on Big Pharma in court. I've taken on predatory student lenders in court. Jordy, I'll see you on the court.
He said on the court, not in the court, right?
Who won, by the way?
So we both won. And let me explain. We played a game of Pig. We called it Gov, and I won. And then we played a game of one-on-one. I forget what it was up to, 7 or 11 win by 2. We went past whatever that number was. It was a pretty close game. And he hit a 3, which we counted as 2 points at the end, and beat me by a couple buckets there. So now, dude was 20 years younger than me, Mark. So frankly, you should have beat me by a lot more. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but skills are skills, Gov. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you got the skills and you dusted them off, and you did well. Good for you.
We tried.
Yeah. Earliest Sixer memory.
Mo Cheeks and Andrew Toney. And I mean, of course, the doctor, but that team.
Well, wait a second. You were old enough to remember the '83 champion team, right? I mean, you were 10, but were you cognizant of what was going on then?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, the '83 team was unbelievable. I still maintain. I mean, this is no disrespect to Maxey and Harden, who are great. I think Cheeks and Toney were the best backcourt we've ever had. Toney. And Maxey comes close to Toney's quickness, but Andrew Toney had the quickest first step. And I think Mo Cheeks was probably the best floor general I've ever watched. And I know a lot of folks are going to disagree with me. There's so much unbelievable talent out there today, but those guys were awesome. Moses, I think, was an underappreciated center, one of the best ever. And I mean, the doctor's just the doctor. He's the OG right there. So they were an amazing team. And I have, not only fond memories, but vivid memories of those teams, of the various plays. I can remember going to games with my dad and enjoying that experience. And that's when I really just became locked in as a Sixers fan. Now, the problem after that was, man, we went a while without, great teams. Obviously, when AI came along, we had that one good run. But these guys now have been consistently good over the last few years, so my kids are spoiled. But I grew up, with that '83 team, and then through the lean years, and now we're back.
Have you met any of the players through the years?
I have. It's very cool to meet these guys, and it's wild. I'm excited to meet them, and they're excited to talk to me, and I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah, right. Any particular guys stand out?
I think Joel is just one of the most decent guys around, and just as a human being, I've got to know him. He's a special guy. He's obviously.
Why do you say that?
He's this huge guy, obviously, and you see him on TV banging around, sort of being tough, but yet he just has there's a sweetness to him and a kindness to him and a gentleness to this giant of a guy. He's been incredibly kind to my children. He's a thoughtful guy, not super into politics or anything like that, but just a thoughtful guy when you talk to him about, the world. He's very curious too, I find, particularly on business things. There's just something really special about him. I'll tell you, I got to know Tobias a little bit. He's someone who cares deeply about the community around him. He invests a lot, not just by writing a check to a community, but actually investing his time. Cares a lot about criminal justice reform. So he's another one who's really a special guy. And then, Doc Rivers, I know people have different views on Doc as a coach. This guy has been a leader on civil rights for many years. He's opened up the doors for many black coaches in the NBA who might not have otherwise had a shot. He's been an advocate against the death penalty and for other criminal justice reforms. And I appreciate Doc and his willingness to kind of use his platform to push for change.
Do you have a favorite Sixer of all time?
You're going to laugh at this answer. So in a city that has included AI and Doc and Joel and all that, my favorite has to be Mo Cheeks. I mean, I just love the way he controlled the floor. He knew who to pass to in the exact right spot. He knew when it was his time to drive down the lane and lay the ball in or take that open mid-range jump shot because his team needed him to score. I love the guys who go out and score 10 or 12 points but have 12 or 14 assists every night. And Mo is that guy. And look, maybe it's just because growing up in my formative years, he was the guy, right? And certainly not the most talented Sixer ever to play, right? Doc, AI, Joel, and others. But to me, just sort of encapsulated what a point guard should be. And that's the position I've always played. And it's, a lot of those lessons I take, frankly, in government and politics about the need to be that floor general, to lay things out, to make the right pass, to know when to shoot, to know when to step back and make the pass. So I'd have to say Mo Cheeks. I never met him. I don't know what he's like as a person, but as a player.
Great guy for sure. One last question, and I think I know the answer, but and I think you're probably going to say to me like, well, I know that today is X and I'm going to just try to be the best governor of Pennsylvania. But, you're 50 years old. What do you hope to be doing, say, when you're 60?
Well, I'm 49, Mark, just to correct the record.
Yeah.
But
no, I know your 50th is in June, but go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I hope to be doing some form of public service. Obviously, my time as governor will be over by then. God willing, I'll serve 8 years, so I'll be done, and governor will be in the rearview mirror. I hope I can look back and say that I left this place better than the way I found it. But my goal is to be doing public service. I enjoy this, and it's something I think I'm good at, and it's something that I believe in. I'm very grounded, as you know, in my family and in my faith. And, my faith really calls me to service and teaches me that there's a responsibility you have to others. And so that is, what I've dedicated my life to. And God willing, I'll be healthy and at 60 and have the chance to keep doing it.
Well, the title is governor, but call me Josh. Josh, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. It was great having you.
Thanks, Mark. It's awesome to be with you. And I'm sure I'm echoing the sentiments of others who are watching the Sixers games every night. No disrespect to the current folks. We miss you, man. We'll sit on the couch and think about, what you'd be saying on a particular call or, when the game's winding down, and we're bringing that, coming in for a landing. We miss you, man. But I'm so happy you're doing so well, and I'm thrilled to be on your podcast. So thanks so much.
You bet.